All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College Application and Website Development, or AWD, 1111 Database Driven Web Development class, I have been creating a series of video presentations. I started out by going in and just to show you real quick, and that's Brad Traversy, if you ever wondered. I went out to the Valley of Code, which is a website with a bunch of handbooks by Mr. Flavio Copes. And I did some presentations based off of his HTML handbook, then his CSS handbook, then his JavaScript handbook. Then I went back to the AWD 1000 class, the Web Development Technologies, grabbed a couple of those lectures, put them in too, and now I've been going through, and I'm almost finished with this, I'm almost finished with this Brad Traversy's Web Dev Guide. All right, Mr. Traversy, as I've mentioned before, he's a self-taught web developer. You go out to traversymedia.com and you can see some of his stuff. I would suggest you buy this book if you can afford it. It's $9.99. I'm not giving copies away. You know, it's his book. So we've gone through chapter 1 on learning and planning, chapter 2 on front-end basics, chapter 3 on front-end advanced, chapter 4 on back-end development, chapter 5 on beyond the browser, chapter 6 on trends and new tech, and chapter 7 in other programming concepts, which leaves us just with chapter 8. All right, and that's on management lifestyle, and then there's a bunch of links at the end. So I think I wanted to go right here. That's where I am. So again, in this chapter, we look at some ways to manage projects as well as lifestyle issues such as physical and mental health. All right. Project management is just that. All right. The bigger the project, the more people you're going to have on it, and it's going to be imperative in that case that you have a project manager who gets it, for lack of better words. In other words, knows what is to be done. All right, let's see. So some people are very organized and have a strict process. Some are just the opposite. If you are freelancing or running a business, you're the one responsible for project management. When you start a project, there's a few things to think about. A main goal, some kind of a timeline, the resources you're going to have to gather, what you're going to charge, and what software and tools you will use. All of this stuff in here is important. There is built-in project management software. Never used Notion, used Trello before, which is basically a job board where you can move stuff around. I know Mr. Smith was big into Trello, and it's a nice product. Never used Zoho or Project.co. Have not used any communication apps. Slack I've looked at. All right, it says you can create chat rooms organized by topic, etc. Discord, one thing I want to make sure that I do, or if I've never done it before, so if I can't, I may ask one of you, hint, hint, Mr. Wharton, who's done it before, to set up a Discord server, maybe just one that we'll use all year round. All right, so we'll call it like the AWD online Discord server or something like that. I've used Zoom. In fact, I'm taking guitar lessons, and a lot of my guitar lessons are done over Zoom. All right, when I can't make it or my instructor is busy that day, we typically do it that way. We ran a lot of our classes, and before we were really well versed in Microsoft Teams, we used Zoom during COVID. All right. Next, they talk about methodologies, and they say a methodology is a system of principles, techniques, and procedures used by those who work in a discipline. Well, the key thing is, and here will be some of them. When you do Agile, the idea is when I was in my 20s and started to get into this stuff, you created a project and you had one big project and you had a timeline that could be weeks, months, even years long. But with Agile, you have a lot of smaller timelines. It's like you break a project up into a lot of mini projects, all right, and what they call smaller, more consumable increments, all right. I've always been or kind of adhered to the waterfall style. As it says, it involves careful planning and documentation. So you come in and typically you create requirements, you do the design, you implement based off of the design, you test, you deploy, and then you have maintenance. And a lot of times in here, rather than maintenance, people will want new features, etc. So you go back to the top again. Scrum, as it says, is a project management rather, framework for developing and delivering products in a complex manner. Never use Scrum. Now he ends here talking about physical health. And I do want to say a couple things about this. It says many people think that being a developer is a cushy job because you sit a lot and you don't have heavy objects. Years ago, one of my older brothers, who was a supervisor at the time at Evinrude Motors in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I don't even know if Evinrude's around anymore, but he was talking to me and I was on break. So, in other words, unlike here at Rankin, where we are basically, other than when you're on vacation, you have to come in here all the time. All right. At my old school in Wisconsin, we finished up usually around May 15th, and we didn't have to come back in if we didn't want to until about August 20th, 25th. So we had over 3 months. You didn't have to come in at all. Now, I still came in once or twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, but a lot of instructors did not. All right. The reason I'm telling you this is my brother said to me once, he said, "Wow, you're off." He said, "It must be nice to have a cushy job like that." And I said, "Hey, you might think it's cushy, but during my time off, I'm doing like I'm doing right now. I'm creating uh, videos that are going to be used later. I'm going back and refining things I've done earlier, etc." So this is not a cushy job. You can develop a lot of health-related issues. I've had back and neck problems myself. I feel fortunate I've never had carpal tunnel. I've had vision problems since I've been a teenager. All right. Yeah, I'm obese. Well, I have a bad diet. I have sleep issues. I don't have headaches and I don't have sciatica. All right. But I agree with his tips in here. Take breaks. Now, that said, especially if you are working on a project and you seem to have hit a barricade, it's like, wow, I just don't know what's going on. Walk away for a few minutes. If the weather's good enough and you're inside, take a walk outside, even if it's a 5 or 10 minute walk. All right. Exercise. I should practice more what I preach. All right. But try to get in some exercise at least a few times a week, if not daily. These sit and stand desks. All right. It says if you can afford it, they're worth it. I've seen those, but I've never used one. Sounds interesting. Yeah, get rest. All right. And again, Mr. Traversy, who's gone through a lot during his life, not that I haven't, but is probably much more attuned to talking about mental health than I am. Burnout is something we all experience at any job. And sometimes you just need to take a day off or you need to walk away for a while, etc. This is an interesting one right here talking about the imposter syndrome. It says it's something that runs rampant in the software development world. If you don't know what it is, it's when someone feels they are undeserving of all their achievements and they usually have low self-esteem about their career. Okay? Now, I know a person, I want to say who they are, all right? Or how they're, what my relationship is with them, etc. But this person in their career has been doing their job. This is not me, but they have been doing their job. They work at a food store and they've been doing a specialized job there for years. And I've looked at some of the work that they do and I'm impressed. But they have told me that they essentially have imposter syndrome, they feel like a fraud. They feel like they really aren't able to do what it is they're supposed to be doing. I feel that way sometimes. I think everyone does in virtually any kind of job at one time or another. Again, it's not an actual psychiatric disorder. It's a label that you put on this. And as he says, there a lot goes into this, especially in the field that we're in. There is so much to learn. It is not possible to learn everything. All right. This can make you feel, as he says here, inadequate and like everyone knows more than you. Another reason is it seems like everybody else might know exactly what they're doing. That isn't true either. This is hard for some people to believe, he said, but I have an incredible amount. This is Brad Traversy, of imposter syndrome even to this day. I have a programming channel with almost 2 million subscribers, and I still wonder if I'm made to do this. Brad, you are. All right. It will get better as time goes by. All right. I would highly recommend, he says here, you get out and spend time with family and friends. All right, as best you can. And that's pretty much it. So to wrap up, he says, I hope you've enjoyed the book. I know this is a lot of information. The most important thing to understand is you do not have to learn all this stuff. You see that there have been certain times when, for instance, I've gone into React and I've skipped the Angular and I've skipped the view part, etc. All right. Then he ends up by having several pages with all sorts of different links on it. So that's it. That's what I wanted to go over. When I come back again, I'm going to start writing some JavaScript programs for you. So I'll be back with that shortly.